Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah. I'm back here in a little pre-Christmas episode. I thought by now we would find out about Clemson coaching staff, but it still kind of mums the word here. We're waiting to hear. We've heard rumors about Garrett Riley, the offensive coordinator, interviewing at North Texas, but that has not panned out. Interviewing at Coastal Carolina, but that has not panned out. Maybe he goes somewhere else as an offensive coordinator like Missouri. I don't know. But as of December 19th, he is still Clemson's offensive coordinator, and it sounds like a decision won't be made or a change won't be made prior to the Pinstripe Bowl, if at all. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the coaching staff. I want to start off talking transfer portal. Clemson has 5 players exiting through the portal already. The first of those was Shelton Lewis, a nickelback. He was promising in the beginning and then kind of quickly faded away. Didn't play a whole lot this year and actually transferred or announced his intent to transfer mid-season to after 4 games to preserve the red shirt, which I don't blame anyone for doing, but he was the first one. The biggest name, though, was another DB, safety Khalil Barnes, who probably would have been a projected starter. With him leaving the safety room, you have Ronan Hannafin, Ricardo Jones, maybe Polo Anderson, the incoming freshman, is kind of your top safety options. So super, super thin there with Khalil Barnes leaving. Now, Barnes is a freshman out of the Athens area. Not a huge recruit, but a huge impact right away. Super promising. Had a sophomore slump. Then, partially because of injuries, but then had maybe is not a slump anymore. Just now he regressed more as a junior. So he had that 1 good year, 2 not so good years. Coach Sweeney said he didn't want to lose him, but also like the safety room was really bad. A fresh start overall there might be good. And maybe we get into that more when we talk about coaching staff changes. And then Keith Adams, running back. I liked Keith Adams. I thought he should have been the short yardage guy instead of Peter Woods. I don't know if that's a Garrett Riley thing to use Peter Woods in short yardage as a running back, or if that was a Dabo Sweeney thing, but I hated it. Keith Adams, that's like the one thing he does really well, so let him do that one thing. Instead, they just didn't use Keith Adams. And this is the thing. It's not a favor to bring someone to bring in a kid who otherwise wouldn't get into that school, for football scholarship, but then not really use him, right? It's sort of like if you let someone into a school and they're not quite qualified and they flunk out, did you do them a favor by giving them a leniency in admissions? Kind of the same thing, same idea in football. If you bring them in and they never play them and they have to transfer, like maybe he should have just gone to like Utah Valley or like Utah State or whatever from the start, and he could have built a great career. So a little frustrating, honestly, that they didn't use Keith Adams. But with Adams leaving, Randall graduating, and 0 ads from true freshmen, they don't have a choice. They have to add a running back, or they're just perilously thin. Whether it's a starter or depth guys is a different question, but they have to add a running back. And then they lost 2 linebackers. One is Crayton, who we saw a little bit in that. I guess it was the Pittsburgh game, not this past season, but the year before. He got picked on a little bit. Didn't see him a whole lot in 2025. And then Jamal Anderson, a guy I spoke highly about. He looks great every time I see him, but you only see him in spring games where he's intercepting passes. So maybe those were flukes, small sample size, but I always liked Jamal Anderson. So not really too happy to see him go. But you lose 2 linebackers to the portal. You lose Wade Woodaz, and you only bring in one the Northwestern decommit, Braden Riley. It's the only one you bring in. So you're really short a linebacker too. So you have to bring in 1 or 2 or 3 linebackers. Maybe Jeremiah Alexander starts with Sammy Brown. Maybe that's fine. But even if that's the case, you got to get some depth. So let's talk about what the Tigers need through the portal. And I guess let's start on defense because that's where the needs are most severe. Cornerback. You got to have a cornerback. Avion Terrell is gone. He leaves as a first or second round draft pick, most likely. Junior departing at cornerback. So Ashton Hampton, I think, can be your number 1. I think that's fine. But who's your number 2? Is it Brandon Strozier? Excuse me, Strozier. He looked okay at times. He also looked really bad at other times. Maybe he's your depth guy, but if you're starting him, you're really betting on progress. And I think in this portal era, this kind of new era, you don't need to bet on progress very often. And that would be a big bet to make. So I think they need probably a starter cornerback and maybe a depth guy too. They do lose Jaden Lucas in addition to Shelton Lewis. So Shelton Lewis and Jaden Lucas both gone, with Lucas just graduating. So probably need some depth there too. So they're going to need one or two cornerbacks. So that's one or two guys. Linebacker, they're going to need two or three. We talked about all the guys departing, and they only had one true freshman. So even just to keep the numbers, they would add two. And you're moving to 105 scholarship and 105 roster slots. We could add three there, so you're up to like 3, 4, 5 total guys already. And then you're going to lose Capehart, you're going to lose Peter Woods, and that's the defensive tackle. You're going to lose T.J. Parker. You kept Will Helt, which is great news. So Will Helt has been retained. So I don't mind a starting defensive end duo of Jaheim Lawson, Will Helt. I think that's fine. I think that's actually really good. But you've got no depth unless Darian Mayo is ready or Ari Watford's ready, and we don't know. We haven't seen anything from them. So at minimum, you need one defensive end. Maybe you get like a starter level guy and you have a 3-man rotation. That'd be the most ideal. So you're probably looking at a defensive tackle and a defensive end. So now you're already talking like seven-ish guys on defense alone. Then on offense, I think wide receiver's fine. I think wide receiver's in good shape. I like Naheem Burrows coming in to compete immediately. We've heard good things about Juju Preston in bowl practice, so that kind of relieves the burden. Plus, you still have Tyler Brown. That relieves the burden with Antonio Williams leaving. So I think you're fine like in that slot kind of role. You definitely don't need something there. I think you've got 3 options. On the outside, I guess there's some question with Wesco, like how bad, like when will he be back from that neck injury or back injury? But we also don't know about Tristan Smith. If Tristan Smith is back, you definitely don't need a wide receiver. If he's gone, you maybe still don't need one. I'm not sure. It's definitely not a pressing need. Tight end's fine. We talked about running back. You got to add a running back or probably 2, probably a starter and depth guy, or maybe just a starter or 2 depth guys. But you're going to need something at running back. Offensive line is the big one. You're going to lose pretty much everybody, and maybe that's an okay restart. So I think at left tackle, you're looking at Braden Jacobs. I think you feel decent about that, assuming his injury is not so severe he doesn't come back from that, 100%. So I think you're good at left tackle. At left guard, I'm a big Ronan O'Connell guy. I have been since his recruitment, since he was a high schooler in Tennessee. I think he's going to be great. I don't really understand why he hasn't played more, to be honest. I'm a big O'Connell guy. I think he'll show out in this Pinstripe Bowl. Maybe I'll be proven wrong. We'll learn more there in this Pinstripe Bowl, but he's going to start the Pinstripe Bowl, and I think he'll do great, and I think he's going to be really good. At center, we're losing Ryan Linthicum, and we don't really have a backup. Maybe Harris Sewell or Colin Sadler could play there. They both kind of struggle to guard, though, so like maybe they're better at center. But again, that's a situation where you're betting on progress. Is it necessary to place that bet? Because if not, you can go out and get a center. If you can go out and get a center, that certainly relieves a potential weakness. So I think that should be a priority. Then at right guard, I think you got some young guys. Gavin Blanchard will be a redshirt freshman. I loved his tape coming out of high school. He was a UCF decommit who came to Clemson. I thought he looked outstanding. It was just not rated high because of his height, which matters. But the tape looked really good. And then we've heard Grant Wise was the best guy Sweeney's ever had any position in his camp. He looks ready. So maybe you go with the young guy there. And then right tackle, maybe Elijah Thurman's 100% ready to go and you could start him. But given the injury history and lack of proven production, it feels like a big bet. So I think you probably want to land 2 starters, probably a center and right tackle, but it could be a guard, it could be some different mix there. But I think you want 2 starters, maybe even 3 total. They did bring in 6 freshmen, so I think if they get 2 starters there, you're feeling pretty good. So that puts you around 10-ish guys, like impact guys, not just throwaway 4th string kind of players, like legit impact guys. That's like 10. And then of course quarterback. Chris Denson's really fun, and if it kind of works out that he's proven and he's ready to he proves himself ready to be the starter in camp, like it would at least be fun. Vizina, I would have loved to see more of this season, but Klubnik was able to battle through injuries, which I appreciate, but now we're in this weird unknown, and it sounds like Klubnik's going to play a lot in this bowl game. Maybe he's going to play the whole thing, and then we still don't learn anything. Honestly, I would really like to see Vizina more and Denson more than Klubnik, even if it costs us the game in this Pinstripe Bowl, because that's going to be more informative. That's kind of priority. So I don't know what they'll do at quarterback. They probably need to go out and get somebody because they haven't made a priority to learn about what they've got. And I understand, like, you want to win games. I would probably shift that priority for the Pinstripe Bowl, and we'll see if they do. It doesn't sound like it, though. So some pretty significant needs in the portal. It does sound like, at least on defense, Tom Allen has been kind of forthright about, like, yeah, we need some guys. We need speed. So I would expect the defense to go big in the portal, and I think that's a breath of fresh air. I would expect 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 kind of like decent numbers just on defense. Offense, I have no idea if they're going to get a quarterback. They sort of have to play coy if they're trying to keep Vizina around until they land someone. So they have to play this weird game, which I don't love. But I think they'll add at least one, but they really need to add like 2 starter level offensive linemen. Certainly they'll get a running back, but I don't know if it'll be a starter quality guy or just a depth piece. That's what we'll figure out. Now, on the coaching front, I have already pre-recorded a Garrett Riley replacement video with candidates, but I don't know if that's happening now. It sounds like, he was encouraged or at least supported to go try to get that Coastal Carolina job. So, like, I guess they're okay with him leaving, but maybe they don't want to eat that buyout by just straight, dismissing him. So maybe he's back. The thing that's interesting, challenging, kind of puts him in a bind is if Coach Sweeney brings them back and they have another bad year where they go 7-5, 8-4, something like that. Like, what's your opportunity then? Can you then move on at that point? I mean, the buyout's lower, but then you're really on the hot seat. Coach Sweeney, if he has another disappointing year, the decline would be like pretty obvious. I don't know that you're going to go pull some of these guys, right? Like, my number one choice was Gordon Samus from UConn. He was, the top guy on my list. Was probably in the running to become the head coach at UConn after Jim Mora Jr. left for Colorado State. But now he's went to TCU, and I guess, that doesn't necessarily mean it's too late. You can go pull him from TCU, just like you pulled Riley, just like South Carolina pulled Riles. So maybe that's not off the table yet, but like it's less likely now for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and share my candidates for offensive coordinator. I guess other 2 things real quick. Mickey Conn, that safety room's kind of went south with Barnes leaving. They had some decommits. I do like Polo Anderson, but they had, I think it was 2 other guys decommit from the safety room. Safety play was really poor, particularly at the end of the year, especially in that Duke game where we saw kind of bad body language from Barnes, from Conn. It was really weird. I'm thinking that Conn is probably, I'm not going to do like a breakdown of other safety coaches they could bring out. That's a little too deep, but I think that move could happen. We'll see. That's probably a post bowl game move if it does happen. And then CJ Spiller, I love Spiller, but like, you got to land these recruits. They haven't been having big impact freshmen come in. They didn't get anyone in this class. They brought in Haynes and Jarvis Green in the other class. Izzy Amume, I thought was a decent ad, but he hasn't done anything. Gideon Davidson was a big time, like his one really, really, really big time recruit. Maybe he could start and be a home run kind of superstar, but he didn't show that kind of home run hitting ability, big runs in the small sample size this year. So now I'm like a little bit concerned there. So don't know what they do about Spiller. But Garrett Riley is certainly the most important one of all. Offensive coordinator. I don't hate his scheme. Like, I like they move the offensive linemen around with a lot of pulls and they run the counter, but they couldn't run the ball this year, and they really haven't run the ball well in short yardage and key third downs. The play calls get a little funky. So I don't know. Is it you don't know what to say is Garrett Riley. Is it Garrett Riley who's calling Peter Woods to get the ball in short yardage? Is it Garrett Riley calling screens in short yardage? Is it are those Dabo things? I don't know. And so it's hard to be overly critical, but huge decision point for the program and for Coach Sweeney's, not his legacy. His legacy is secure at this point, 2 national championships and a million ACC championships. But for his long-term future, this has got to be a year that shows progress back to 9 wins. Things are on the right track. And so this is a huge decision. So with that, I'll end by sharing 3 of the potential names if Garrett Riley were replaced. And I share it now because I think if he is replaced, it's going to be one of these things that happens after the bowl where it's kind of like boom, boom, he's out and someone else is in, just like it was with him, where he's already got the name and the departure is announced simultaneous with the new person. So it may not be time to share this later, so I'll share it now. Enjoy. I don't know that the candidates here are quite as obvious as Tom Allen and some of the other awesome alternatives we had during that search last year for defensive coordinator, but there are some good ones, and so I want to discuss. So these are loosely in ascending order. As we go further, they get even better, but this first one starts off pretty strong with Tim Cramsey, the offensive coordinator at Memphis now, as of like a week ago or 2 weeks ago, whatever, of Arkansas. I just went there with Ryan Silverfield. Cramsey's 50 years old, and he has a long, long track record of being an offensive coordinator. He was the OC at New Hampshire, FIU, Montana State, and Nevada. Now, some of these stops have been wildly successful, others less so. Nevada, not so good. In 2016, they were 91st in scoring. His year at Sam Houston State, they scored over 43 points a game. At Marshall, they had a couple good years, including his last year there where they really peaked with 33 points per game at Marshall, and that was with a strong running game as well. But I think you're mostly focused on Memphis. Memphis, in kind of a somewhat similar deal with Clemson, is they're going to have a little bit more talent than the other teams in their conference, just like Clemson's going to. Should be very good offensively and defensively. Generally should be at the top of that conference, just like Clemson should be. And in those years, 2022 through 2015, they had a strong offense every year. 39, 35, 35 points, or I guess 36 in that middle year, every year. Really strong, especially in the rushing game, where they were 36th the last year in rushing yards, rushing offense. Clemson was 99th. Now, I think it's also worth saying that Brendan Lewis, their quarterback, ran for 618 yards. So to some extent, you have to maybe have a running quarterback for this to work, but Tate Reynolds, Chris Denson, that's exactly what Clemson's kind of got in the pipeline, so maybe that's okay. But I think Cramsey, now he goes to Arkansas. I think it's hard to pull anybody from an SEC school to an ACC school, but South Carolina, Kentucky, Arkansas may be the exceptions. Unless he just wants to stay with Ryan Silverfield, I think it's possible. I think it's realistic. There are some names that I had in my head or written down. I had some PowerPoints for him even that I crossed off the list because they're no longer realistic. One of those Buster Faulkner, because he went to Florida in the SEC. I don't think Clemson can pull from Florida like they could have from Georgia Tech. So he's off the list, but I think Cramsey is realistic. Next up is Jonathan Brewer in the ACC with Duke, the ACC champion Blue Devils. He is a Auburn/Arkansas guy. That's where he went to school. But he's a Rhett Lashley guy too. He's offensive quality control at Miami. Then he followed Lashley to SMU, where he became a co-OC, and then he went with Manny Diaz to Duke, where he could be the full-time, the not split OC the last 2 years. And this year, offense was pretty good. And you got to remember, this is Duke. So while they've upped their talent level significantly, especially at quarterback with Darian Mensah, who I think enters next year as a guy who's kind of a dark horse Heisman, maybe an early draft pick kind of thing in a year. But Jonathan Brewer this year, that offense, 34 points per game, including 46 on Clemson in Death Valley. So we saw it for ourselves. Really good passing offense, 14th, despite not having the best rushing. But they were better than Clemson, both passing and rushing, and better in third down. It feels like at least a small upgrade at bare minimum. And it translates because he's doing this in the ACC already. So I think this is a very safe hire. Some upside, but would be very surprising if this isn't at least a minor upgrade. And if it's not, then you know the issues are way, way deeper. But I think this is a rock solid hire for Clemson if they can pull Jonathan Brewer from Duke. Traditionally, that would be a very, very obvious upgrade. I still think they could pull it off, but I don't know if it's as much of a given lately, given how much Duke has invested in NIL, winning players, taking guys from Clemson in the recruiting process even. So I don't know it's 100%, but I think this one is also very realistic. I think Clemson could pull it off if it came to it. I want to pause real quick and tell you how you could support this channel. Certainly liking this video and subscribing to the channel helps a lot. And another thing you can do is support our sponsors. One of them, Section 103. They released a line of Clemson apparel. This shirt is part of that line. This one features the Clemson cadence count. They have a lot of other different unique designs that hit on Clemson traditions. They have them on t-shirts. They have good-looking polos and hats. So jump over there, jump to their website, section103.com, and use code RYAN10 for 10% off so they know I sent you. Continuing down the list, we're getting into some guys that I think might be a little hard to pull, but very appealing. So Jason Beck, former BYU player. He's now the offensive coordinator at Utah. And I don't know if it's tougher to pull because he's from, he's kind of got Utah roots there as a player from BYU, or maybe it's a little easier because, he's at a rival. I don't know. But it feels realistic. Clemson should be an upgrade from Utah. And he does have ACC experience. He was a QB coach at Virginia and Syracuse, and then the offensive coordinator for Syracuse. The downside, as the OC in 2023 for Syracuse, things went pretty bad. They only averaged 23.5 points per game. That was when they had Garrett Riley as the quarterback, 92nd in scoring. Not great. But 2024 went to New Mexico, and this is New Mexico. They jumped to 24th in scoring offense, over 33 points a game. They ran for 253.6 per game. You want a guy who could run the ball. He did it. Quarterback Devin Dampier ran for over 1,100 yards for him in New Mexico. He brings Dampier to Utah with him. He's the OC there this year. They are unbelievable offensively, particularly on the ground. 6th in scoring offense over at Utah at 41 points a game. Clemson was 60th, so 6th or 60th. 87th in passing offense, not great, but 2nd in rushing. And again, Devin Dampier, he ran for 687. So another guy who's a little bit predicated on a QB who can run the ball, but that seems to be what Garrett Riley's trying to do anyway, or Coach Sweeney, bring in Denson, bring in Tate Reynolds. So these moves might not fit as well with Vizino or Brock Bradley, but if you're trying to bring in the running quarterback, this is a guy, they're going to have a lot of motion, a lot of RPO, a lot of zone read. This is a college offense. This is not an NFL offense, but I think that's what Coach Sweeney likes. I think this would be a very, very, very good pull. I would be really excited about Jason Beck. I think this is a true, we're going to run the ball, but there's a lot of creativity. This is a little bit like Buster Faulkner in that way, is that it's run first, but it's creative. This is not just old school I formation. Please don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe and hype. And of course, support our sponsors. That's Ready Vets if you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, or Section 103 if you're just looking for some good looking clothes. Thank you to our sponsor, Ready Vets. If you live in the upstate and have a dog or cat that needs immediate care, Ready Vets is the place to go. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe.